Chapter 1. The Story of Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors, narrated by Gary Surratt. Chapter 1. One of the great followers of the Lord was a man named Jacob, who was to be the father of Joseph. Because Jacob always did as the Lord told him and made offerings to him, he was blessed. And God came to him and said that his name be Jacob no longer, but Israel, the name that shall be revealed down through the centuries. And God said to him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. The nation and the company of nations shall spring from you. The land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, I will give to you, and I will give the land to your descendants after you. And this is the beginning of the tribe of Israel, the people who were chosen by the Lord. For Israel was fruitful and had 12 sons altogether. Of all these, Israel loved Joseph the most, but Joseph was the son of his old age. And because of his love for Joseph, the father made a fine robe for him, with long sleeves and many colors to go with it, like a rainbow. His brothers saw this proof of Israel's love for Joseph, and they hated him, because of the jealousy they felt. They could not be friendly with him. Now Joseph had a dream, and it was such a strange dream, however, that he decided to tell his brothers about it. He said to them, Hear this dream that I had dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field. Behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf. Now the brothers were sure that Joseph's dream meant that they were to bow down to him, and they hated him all the more. And then he dreamed another dream. And he went to his brothers and said, Behold, I have dreamed a second dream. And this time, behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. This made his brothers angry and hated even more, for they were sure that the sun and the moon, including with the 11 stars, represented their father, their mother, and they, his 11 brothers. And they were exceedingly jealous with him, with a jealousy that made them hate him. Then Joseph told his dream to his father. And when Israel heard it, he rebuked Joseph and said to him, What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come and bow ourselves to the ground before you? But because Israel was a wise man, and one who was blessed by the Lord, he did not feel no jealousy toward his son, Joseph. And so, after rebuking Joseph for the possible meanings that the dream might have had, Israel kept Joseph's dream close to him in his memory and fought about its meanings. One day, as his sons were pasturing their flocks at the fireplace, Israel sent Joseph to find his brothers and bring word of how they fared. In the fields, Joseph met a man who told him that the sons of Israel had gone to Dothan with their flocks. Joseph went after them, and they saw him approaching across the plain. Before he came near him, they plotted against him and said, Here comes the dreamer of dreams. Come now, let us kill him and throw him in one of these pits. Then we shall say that a wild beast has devoured him, and we shall see what becomes of his dreams. But one of the brothers, Reuben by name, who had a little pity, said to them, Let us not take his life, my brothers. Let us cast him here in this pit in the wilderness, but laid no hand on him. Israel said this on the hope that he could rescue Joseph from the pit and restore him to their father. And so when Joseph came to his brothers, they seized him and stripped him of the long-sleeved robe of many colors, and they cast him down into an empty pit. Then they sat down to eat. And looking up, suddenly they saw a band of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with balm and spices and gum, headed down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And so the brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him for 20 shekels of silver. The traders took him with him down into Egypt. Reuben did not know this, for he had gone away. But later Reuben returned to the camp and found that Joseph was not in the pit. And he wept and found his brothers and said, "The lad is gone, and where shall I go?" To hide their cruel deed, the brothers killed a goat, and they dipped Joseph's robe into the blood of the goat, and brought the robe to their father, and said, "This we have found. See now whether it's your son or not." And Israel recognized it, and said, "It is my son's robe. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph is without a doubt torn to pieces." And then Israel wept and tore his garments, which was the custom when it was great mourning. He mourned his favorite son for many days. All of his sons and all of his daughters came to comfort him, but he would not be comforted. He said to them, "I will go down into the grave under my son mourning." Thus Joseph's father mourned for him and showed great sorrow. Meanwhile, after the brothers had sold him into slavery, he was accepted by Potiphar, the captain of the king's guard. The Lord was with Joseph and caused everything that came into his hands to flourish and prosper. So Potiphar prospered because of the work of Joseph. And he made the son of Israel overseer of all his houses and lands and put him in charge of all he had. All went well with Joseph for the time, for everything he did was blessed by the Lord. But Joseph was quite a handsome man, and the wife of Potiphar, seeing him every day, fell in love with him and asked him to make love to her. Joseph refused and said to her, "Lo, having me, my master is no concern about anything in the house. He's put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he not kept back anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" It turns out, Potiphar's wife spoke words of love to Joseph, but he would not listen to her. He just ignored it completely. But one day, she caught his garment in her hand, and when he pulled away from the grass and ran out of the house, the garment was pulled from him and left in her hand. And Potiphar's wife was angry with Joseph for spoiling the love she had offered him. And when she saw that she had his garment in her hand, she plotted so she might take revenge against him. Calling all the men in the household to her, she told them that Joseph had tried to make love to her. And he cried out in a loud voice, and she said, "When he heard, he lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment with me, and fled out of the house." When Potiphar came home, his wife told him the same story. "The Hebrew servants you brought among us came into me to insult me. As soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment with me, and fled out of the house." Potiphar questioned his servants, and they turned out his wife's story, for they had told it to him as she had told it to them earlier. Then Potiphar's anger was kindled and burned hotly. And he took Joseph and placed him into the prison where the king's prisoners were confined. But the Lord was still with Joseph, and he caused the keeper of the prison to look upon him with favor. In fact, the keeper placed Joseph in charge of all the prisoners and of the buying of supplies and all that was done in the prison. And as before, everything that Joseph turned his hand prospered and flourished and was done well, for the Lord was with Joseph ashore. And then it turns out that after Joseph was placed into prison, it turned out that the chief butler and the chief baker of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, offended him about some cattle, a cattle problem. And the king ordered him placed in prison. Now Joseph, son of Israel, was a prisoner too, but he was in charge of the other prisoners. One morning, as he came into the king's den, he saw that they were downcast. And he asked, why? He said they had dreamed strange dreams, and nobody could interpret them. And Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me, I pray you. The chief butler told his dream to Joseph, And Joseph told this guy that in 3 days Pharaoh would lift up his head and restore him to office. And he asked the man to remember him and to help get him out of prison. To the baker he said the dream meant that in 3 days Pharaoh also lift up his head away from his body, for his fate was behind. And it came to be exactly as Joseph predicted. The baker was hanged by the neck on the gallows, and the butler was restored to the palace. But the butler did nothing to help Joseph get out of prison. Joseph stayed in that prison for 2 years. But then, the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, had 2 dreams, and nobody could interpret it. Then the butler remembered Joseph and told Pharaoh how Joseph had interpreted his dream and the baker's dream, and it all happened as he predicted. And so Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and they brought him from the prison to the throne room of the king of Egypt. Then the king told Joseph that he had dreamed that 7 fat and sleek cows came up from the river Nile and fed on the green grass. And 7 poor and gaunt cows came up and ate the 7 fat cows, but were still as gaunt as before. He also dreamed of 7 ears of grain growing on one stalk, full and good, and 7 ears on another that were blighted, and the blighted ears swallowed up the good ears. At that point, Joseph said to Pharaoh, God has revealed to Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years. The 7 good years of grain are 7 years. Both dreams mean the same, except the 7 lean and gaunt cows that came after are 7 years of famine, 7 years of hunger. And the 7 empty ears of grain are also 7 years of famine. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all of Egypt. After them will come 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. For the famine will consume the land, and the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God and will shortly come to pass. And Joseph directed Pharaoh to to appoint overseers to take a 5th part of each harvest during the years of plenty and place it aside to keep as a reserve against the 7 years of famine that was to follow. And then after Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dream as telling the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine in the land of Egypt, he suggested that a wise and discreet man be put over all of Egypt and handle the storing of grain during the lean years. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all this, there is none so discreet and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne shall I be greater to you. I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no man shall lift up hand or foot in the land of Egypt. And then Pharaoh directed Joseph in clothes of fine linen, and he placed a gold chain around his neck, and Joseph rode in the 2nd chariot immediately behind the king. And Pharaoh gave him a wife, a daughter of one of the great priests of Egypt. Before the years of famine started, Joseph had 2 sons, and he gave thanks to the Lord for all that had come to him. In his prayers to the Lord he said, God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house, and God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. The 7 years of plenty in the land of Egypt came to an end. With that, the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had predicted. There was famine in all other lands, but in the land of Egypt there was grain for bread. And all the people of Egypt began to grow hungry because there was no more grains in the fields. They came to Pharaoh and cried for bread. And Pharaoh said to the Egyptians, go to Joseph, my servant, and what he says to you, do. And so when the famine had spread all over the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses in the cities and sold grain to the Egyptians. They came from all Egypt to The famine was severe throughout the length and breadth of the land. And before the years of famine were over, people from all the earth came to Egypt to buy grain far and near. A famine raged all over the earth, and only in Egypt was grain set aside and stored for use during the lean years. There was famine also in the land of Canaan. And Israel told his sons, "Behold, I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down, buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." And so 10 of his sons left Egypt to buy grain, leaving Benjamin, the youngest, next to Joseph. And there were many other grain buyers that came up to Joseph the governor, who sold grain to all. And the brothers came up to Joseph and bowed down to him, for they did not know him in his old position. But he recognized them all right. And because they had sold him into slavery, he treated them like a bunch of strangers and said, "You are spies. You come to feel the weakness of the land." And he answered, "No, my lord, but by food your servants come. We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the son of one man in the land of Canaan. Behold, the youngest is the stay of our father, and one is no more." But Joseph said, "It is as I said to you, you are spies." And he placed them all in prison for 3 days actually. On the third day, Joseph delivered them from prison. Then he said, "Do this, and you shall live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined in the prison, and let the rest go to carry grain for the famine of your households, and bring your youngest brother to me. So your words shall be very fine, and you shall not die." Then he took Simeon from them and bound him right before their eyes. But secretly he gave orders to his servants to fill the sacks with grain, and to replace every man's money in his sack. And he gave them provisions for the journey. When they returned to Canaan, they told their father all that had happened. Then they emptied their sacks to give grain to their families. And behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the money, they were dismayed. And Israel said, "You have bereaved me, my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more. And now you will take Benjamin. All this has come upon me." Reuben told his father that he would surely bring back both Simeon and Benjamin, and he offered his own 2 sons as hostage. But Israel said, "My son Benjamin shall not go down with you, for his brother Joseph is dead, and Benjamin is the only son that I have left with me. If harm should befall him on the journey you are to take, you are to bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave." But the famine was severe in the land of Canaan still. And Israel told his sons, after they had eaten the grain brought from Egypt, "Go again, buy us a little food." But the sons told him that the governor had warned them not to show their faces again, unless their youngest brother Benjamin was with them. Israel protested against losing his son, but this was a matter of life or death for all the tribes of Israel. And so he sent them once again to Egypt, and Benjamin went with them. Joseph received them and asked for the help of their father. They bowed before him and said they had brought back the money that was restored for their sacks of grain. And Joseph's steward, who had replaced the money, said, "Rest assured, do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your fathers must have put treasure into your sacks for you. I received the money." Then Joseph ordered the food be served to them. And while they were eating, he told his servants to fill up the sacks of grain again, and to replace every man's money in his sack once more, and also to place his own silver cup in the sack of the youngest, Benjamin. As soon as dawn came, the brothers were sent away on their donkeys. But when they had not gone too far from the city, Joseph sent his servant after them to inquire why they had stolen his silver cup. They denied this, but the cup was found in Benjamin's bag, and they were brought back before Joseph. The governor of Egypt told the brothers that Benjamin must remain and be his slave because of the theft of the cup. And Judah one of the brothers said in order to do this would break the heart of their father and bring about his death from sorrow. And so Judah offered to remain as a slave in place of Benjamin. And then Joseph could control himself no longer. And he ordered all of his servants from his presence. He told his brothers, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And he cautioned him not to be distressed, because, he said, the Lord sent him there to preserve life and to bring about the people of Israel during the famine. And he warned that there were still 5 years of famine to come. And he told them to bring all their people and their flocks to the land of Goshen, in the eastern part of Egypt. And he said, you must tell my father of all my splendor in Egypt and all that you had seen. Make haste and bring my father down here. After the word of their coming, of the brothers coming, but then it says, let's see, sent wagons to bring the people of Israel to the land of Goshen. And he gave them provisions for the journey. They returned to their father, who fainted at the news that his beloved son Joseph was still alive. But he revived and he said, it is enough. I will go and see him before I die. And Israel offered prayers and sacrifices to the Lord. And God came to him in a vision and said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will be there to make of you a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again. And Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. So Israel and all the people, and their cattle and their goods, journeyed directly into Egypt. And there was pasture for their cattle in the land of Goshen, where Joseph had arranged for them to stay. There they were provided for the rest of the years of famine. And after the years of famine passed, the people of Israel were fruitful, and their numbers grew, and they were prosperous. Israel, the elder of the tribe, lived for 17 years in Egypt, and the years of his life were 147. As he lay on his deathbed, Israel asked Joseph not to bury him in Egypt, but to take his body to the burying place of his people, in the land of Canaan. And so Israel died. And Joseph and his brothers mourned, and Israel was embalmed by the Egyptian physicians, so his body could be buried in Canaan. And Joseph and his family and all the people of Egypt went up to the burying place of Canaan, and there was great mourning. But Joseph's brothers now were afraid that after their father's death, that Joseph would seek revenge on them for selling him into slavery. And so Joseph reassured them and said, fear not, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil to me, but God meant it for good, that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear, I shall provide for you and for your little ones. And before he died, Joseph said to the people of Israel, God will visit you, and you shall carry my bones from here back to the land of my father. And that is the complete work of Joseph in the coat of many colors.